Everything's getting recorded.
Yeah, just let me know whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, ready?
Okay.
All right,
So,
hold on, sorry. That was my ready for. Okay, I'm gonna give the intro.
okay.
All right, so I'm gonna mute you, and then when I say it's your time for the question, then just go ahead and unmute yourself. All right, three, two, and one. Welcome back to another episode of. We are here for the live Q&A, and we are recording this in November 2024, just a day before the International ADHD Conference. So if you're hearing this on the podcast feed and you were there, it was nice hanging out with you. All right, we have a question from Tina. So Tina, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thanks, Eric. So, my question is basically I'm moving and I feel very overwhelmed. I know I struggle a lot with executive functioning, um, especially around emotional regulation and time management. And I'm in a situation where I'm trying to move and I feel very overwhelmed. And um, as the days are passing and I keep procrastinating and not doing stuff, I just feel the tension rising. So I'm just looking for any advice, any tips on helping me through. I find especially the smaller things are the things that I'm having difficulty with, like the things that you keep maybe in your drawers, like little mementos or pieces of papers where somebody, a ticket stub or something. And I know that sounds wild, but like it's those things that I'm having particularly a hard time letting go of. But also it feels weird to, um, I guess, put it in storage or to put it somewhere
I
else. I
got
don't know, but
And
any advice?
I don't think, at least from everyone here who's listening, I don't think anyone here thinks that's weird. I think we all think it's relatable. Okay, so when is your move?
I still have time. It's so by the end of December. I personally am hoping to, I'm moving in with family.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to move before the holidays. So like mid-December is December 15th is my goal to be out.
Okay. So that's just a little bit more than a month, right? Okay. How big is the space you're currently in?
It's not that big. It's a one-bedroom apartment. Um, I should say I live on my own. I also live in a city where I don't know many people
Okay.
at all. So I feel like I don't have other sources of help. Um, and I don't know, it's just a struggle. Like last night, I was trying to get stuff done and I felt really overwhelmed and I ended up just putting everything back in a pile in a box. So
Okay.
any advice?
Yeah. So, and first of all, I relate so much to the stress of moving. The last move I did, I'm sure it won't be, but I hoped it will be the last move I ever did because it was so stressful. Okay. So, starting with some of like the basics, do you have boxes and are you like getting boxes as you go?
Yes, I have boxes.
Great. Okay. Have you labeled your boxes for what room they will go into?
Yes, that I have stuff for my kitchen, stuff for my bedroom, stuff for my living room, and then another box that's like miscellaneous. So
Okay. For all these little things that you're like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know if I want to keep this. If you had to, basically, if you had to buy it back from yourself, would you do it?
so I think I'm going to add another layer of complication. I think
Please.
one of my struggles is that I'm moving out of my place basically because my work contract ended. And so
Okay.
I don't have a job right now and I'm waiting. I'm applying for stuff, but I feel like it's because I'm in a place of uncertainty. So it's
Mhm.
like I want to hold on to stuff, but I also want to reduce what I need to put into storage. So it's kind of like dealing with the two dilemmas of I want actually to keep everything I have. I just um, but I feel like I can't.
Okay. Do you have a budget for your move?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Um, where do you live, like generally?
I'm in Ottawa.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, do you have I think it's called TaskRabbit there?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can go on TaskRabbit and like hire out someone to help you like pack stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's something
Um,
I could look into.
the other thing I would suggest is adult study hall for co-working. You know, we have these clean with me sessions. But something that's kind of cool about adult study hall, especially some of the facilitated sessions, is that even if it's a themed session, people will actually use it for whatever they want to, which is totally fine. Um, and just doing stuff on screen can be helpful for some people. um I also struggle with getting rid of stuff and this as well. One of the things that I have found helpful is if I have someone else with me and they are the ones that basically say yes or no, like hold up the object, yes or no. So as long as I'm not actually touching it or holding it, it seems easier for me to make those decisions. It's a lot of things that were like the mementos, like, let's say you have I think did you say concert tickets? That
Yeah, like I still hold on to those kinds of things. Like I
by
went
the
to a
way,
concert.
me too. I absolutely, and I really actually hate that all concert tickets are not digital because I want that physical stub. Um, but something like that you can totally keep, you can make an art project out of it, like hang it, or just take pictures of it, or just put it in a drawer, like in a envelope or something. Like to me, that's not like a big deal decision. But what's a big deal is that there's probably like hundreds of those little decisions,
Yeah.
right? Um, So as far as like, what happens if you take your desk drawer and literally just like empty it all out into a box?
So that's actually what I've currently done. So I emptied everything into like a big shopping bag, but
Okay.
it's like going through the shopping bag and then deciding what I want to, you know, what needs to be thrown away, what I want to keep. But I just feel very overwhelmed when I do that.
Yeah, well, it is overwhelming because you're making a ton of decisions. Like, and that's, decision making is an executive function,
Yeah.
right? So it's like feeling overwhelmed is normal. And, they say that, moving is, and it's just for neurotypical people, but moving is considered one of the top five life stressors that we ever experience,
Yeah.
right? Um, So what do we say? We said co-working, in a study hall. Also taking a look at like take a space that you're kind of stuck on, take a picture of it, and then actually look at the picture and decide what you want to do. Something about seeing something that's visual that's in 2D versus actually in front of you in 3D. For some reason, it processes differently in the brain. I don't
Okay.
know if you've ever tried that.
No,
Um,
I haven't.
put on some good music. Um, And the other thing that for me helped me when I did my last move, um, was this idea of like, all right, if I got rid of this thing and it turns out that I actually wish I didn't, is it replaceable? Like most things, yes.
Yes.
Right? We get into this kind of like just in case kind of thinking, or that I might need this, or there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
Right? That's where that clutter and like just keeping things because we're basically like uh, delaying a decision,
Yeah.
right? And I've once heard the idea that piles and clutter are just delayed decisions, which I think is true.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
So I hope that's helpful for you.
Yeah. No, definitely will do some of these, implement some of these actions to kind of help me in it. So thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you. And I also want to invite anyone from that's here live to also put in the chat if there's anything that I didn't say that you might suggest as well, or anything that's worked for you. All right, let's go to another question here. Um, let's see. Hannah asked, my ADHD, autism, depression, and anxiety feel so interconnected that it's hard to find where to begin. as it feels like a cycle. It's difficult to address one without considering the others when it feels overwhelming and I get stuck. Oh, but then it feels overwhelming and I get stuck. Is there one of those that you would focus on first, which might positively impact the management of the others? That's a really awesome question. Um, it's interesting how we so badly want to sort of delineate like what's the autism, what's the ADHD, what's the depression. And like, as much as we want to sort of separate these things, I don't know if it's truly possible to because we are dynamic people and yeah, they all sort of interconnect off of each other. I have read before in clinical studies that when it's just related to ADHD, so when you have ADHD and you have either anxiety or depression, if the anxiety or depression is clinically severe, to address the anxiety, the depression first before addressing the ADHD. Um, I don't know if that would hold true with autism as well. My gut would say yes, but my gut is not science. My gut is my gut. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to think what other perspective on that. Looking at medication management, if that's something you're exploring. Um, But yeah, they absolutely are all interconnected. There really isn't a way to separate them. But I think if the anxiety or depression, and especially if there's a lot of sort of that sort of autistic burnout that maybe you're feeling, I think that is something to address as well. Sort of getting the nervous system kind of down regulated and so you can kind of think again. So I hope that is a helpful response for you, Hannah, and hang in there. All right. And just a reminder to put go live in front of your question if you are interested in conversing for your question. All right. Amber asked, and I'm not sure if Amber wanted to go live or not, but I will read the question right now. I'm curious if anyone else is fearful of what our health rights support protection will be like in the new year with the new administration. I'm definitely feeling scared and not that misery loves company, but curious how others are feeling. This is my first election post-diagnosis, and the grief process is huge right now for me. I'm worried that protections will go away for myself and my son. Amber, you and me both. Um, Yeah, no, this is tough because it is, it's interesting. I during the last election, I had put out a bunch of stuff on the podcast and I was much more sort of vocal. I think part of just why I didn't do that this year is I'm still kind of coming out of burnout myself and I'm really being very intentional about where I'm putting my energy. Um, but it's funny because I still remember an email I got during the last election where someone said to me, it's like stay in your lane, and I'm like, I'm a social worker. This is my lane. So yeah, I am scared too. I think a lot of people are, and I kind of think that if you're not, maybe you're not really paying attention to what's going on. This is uh I think what's hard is not getting consumed by these fears. And I think that's, I definitely don't recommend burying our head in the sand, but like if you're angry about this, anger is an amazing motivator for change. Um, the challenge is we're dealing with huge systemic social change. Um, you know, that what's that quote by Margaret Mead that never doubt that a small group of ordinary citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Um, you know, taking care of each other and supporting each other, even just like in our local community and validating um each other, I think is really really important. Um, yeah, I don't have good answers for this. We are absolutely going to be entering a period of uncertainty and it's I don't know what's going to happen. I wish I had a crystal ball. Um But yeah, if anybody else has suggestions in the chat, please share those, and I'll try to relay those to the best that I can. Um, but man, no, it's Amber, I'm with you. I'm with you, and allow yourself to feel the grief. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. I think the important thing is to not get stuck there. You know, no, don't just listen or watch the news, but like try to get involved in your community doing something for political advocacy. Because I think doing something around the thing that you are concerned about um, can be grounding and regulating and empowering. But yeah, no, it's a challenge. But thank you for the question. All right, let's see. Um, Next question we got Stacy. And again, Stacy, I'm not sure if you want to go live. Um, all right. Are there any tips for maintaining awareness to better keep track of items? I have lots of workarounds, trackers, lanyards, etc., but not everything requires a tracker or a daily item. Sometimes I don't know what I've missed, something that is needed until it's too late, and I've forgotten if I left it somewhere. Stacy, any chance you can come up live? Because I just have more questions about your question. Because it sounds like you are doing a lot of things, and I want to know a little bit more about that, what you are doing. So let me know if you are able to respond live, and I'll pull you up for your audio. Just a moment to respond. All right. I'm not seeing your response, so I'm going to try to answer it with the information that I have here. Um, So maintaining awareness to better keep track of items. I guess I want to know about like, are you talking about like keeping track of like actions and behaviors or actual things? Because it's like I really do want to know more specifically about what it is that you're kind of asking about. Maybe we'll come back to that once you give me some more information. All right. It's been a while since I've done the Q&A solo. It's fun. All right. If I don't get the ability to kind of preview these questions, I got it. It's real time. We're live. We're also streaming this on YouTube. All right. Siddharth asks, what do you recommend as good resources to practice simple skills to rebuild confidence and improve executive functioning like time and task management? Okay. Um, and Siddharth, do you want to go live? Let me know that. Now, these are two sort of separate things. You know, I think that self-confidence is a sort of a lagging indicator of other things that we are doing, right? So, I mean, and I would be interested to know which executive functions you're wanting to improve. So you said like time and task management. So we'll start there. So with time management, now remember, we can't actually manage time. We can only manage energy and we can become more aware of time, right? So one of the things, and we do this in our coaching groups, and this is something that I kind of recommend as a lifelong skill to really do on a regular basis, is to make predictions about how long you think a particular activity or task will take you, and actually like track how long it actually takes you. When you do this enough, one of the things that you'll discover is there's a pretty reliable delta between what your gut tells you and what the actual time takes, right? So for me, I know that we have with when I predict how long something will take, I do listen to my gut. I also know my gut is reliably wrong, right? So my gut will typically tell me that, let's say a task, every part of me is like, yep, that will take me an hour for sure, an hour, no more. And then I'll ask, could it take 2 hours? Maybe. Could it take 3 hours? There's no way it'll take 3 hours. I will then time block 3 hours for that task. I have learned just through lots and lots of trial and error, that like my gut it kind of it discounts it by about 2/3, right? So I let go of any judgment about that, and I just know that it's pretty reliable. It's like at a triple what I how long I think tasks will take me. So that's one thing. Task management. And I think it's connected to that. When you have a better idea of how long things take you, it's easier to actually know what's possible in a day. Um, and the other thing is to also recognize is that this is not just an issue of ADHD. Nobody gets everything done on their to-do list every day, which is why it's, I think, really helpful to find different sort of frameworks to help you prioritize what you want to do first, right? Because if you do the most important things first, then first you're going to do the most important things, right? And it's a kind of if you think about it, it's a kind of simple math. You have the most amount of hours in the day at the start of the day. If you have a top priority and you do that first, right? And that's kind of your focus there, right? There's going to be less opportunities to not do that thing, right? If you keep putting it off, you're delaying the thing that you say that's the most important. Now, if you are someone who's like, oh, but it's really hard to get started on that most important thing first. I need that momentum builder. Like, okay, I would encourage you to experiment. If you need a momentum builder, and so it's like a quick win, so you can feel like, I got something accomplished. Now I can do this bigger thing that's actually really important. If you do that and you can do it successfully, fantastic. But if you find that maybe you think you're a momentum builder, and what actually happens is, all right, so let's say you want to clear off your desk, which is a good first activity for your day. You clear off your desk, like, oh, like I'm kind of on the roll here. Um, let me actually, I'm gonna organize my drawer. Oh, I'm on a roll here. I haven't dusted in here in a while. I'm going to do that. Right. And it kind of keeps going. And yeah, you're getting all these things done, which we like to call pseudo productivity, or another term is procrastivity. Um, and so, you know, experiment. If you can do the quick win and then the big thing, do it. If you realize that you tell yourself, I want to do the quick win and then I'll do the big thing, but it's not actually happening, I would refer to that as one of the lies that we tell ourselves. And I'm not saying lie as in like you're totally just like being awful to yourself. It's like we think, we think that this is true. And until we sort of let go of outcome and just really be curious to observe the process of what we're doing, right? At that point, we can say, okay. So whenever I think I'm going to do this, this is what ends up happening. In our groups, we talk a lot about our tendencies, right? Because our tendencies don't have to be what actually happens, right? We could set kind of guardrails around our tendencies when we know that, like for me, I call them my red flag thoughts. You know, I still to this day have the thought, that'll just take 5 minutes. Nothing ever takes me 5 minutes, ever, 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 ever. Right. And I still have that thought, or I'll just do one more thing. Nope, not actually happening. Right. That's one of those lies I tell myself. And when we can become curious, I think with curiosity also comes humor. Right. If we can just sort of laugh at like, how absurd is this? I still do this, right? Not in a absurd shaming way, an absurd of, brains are funny sometimes. So I hope that helps. And I think the more you sort of gain the skills, the practice, and start to feel some of that success, that's where that confidence will come from. But always meet yourself where you're at, even if where you're at is, several steps back from maybe where you once were, right? Like that's life. Like we take steps forward, we take steps backwards. Like, yeah, it feels crappy when you're, not where you once were, right? But where you are now is just that. It's where you are now. It's not a predetermined factor of where you will be. All right. Well, Kristen joined us. How you doing, Kristen? Looks like you got
Very
beat
well.
up there or something. Got a bandit on your head. What's
Okay, so my
You're
long
real
time,
quiet. Bring your microphone up to your mouth.
let's see if this works. I found these in my bag. Is that better?
It's a little bit better. Well, we can
Okay,
adjust in
okay,
post-production.
sorry. Um, so, yeah, my long time hairdressers never, yeah, it was purely an accident. The curling irons just popped, I mean, like, not even a full second.
Oh
And
no.
it was like we were looking at it and he sprayed some stuff on it to make it not burn, but we didn't see anything. The next day it's like this, and then I took a shower and the top layer came off, and I took a picture now and showed Gary because I didn't even show it to him, and he's like, yeah, why don't you go get something to put on that, because it is like,
Oh
I don't want to show
no.
it because it's gross. I mean, it's, I'm like, oh my god, and I gotta be Friday in the thing, I maybe
Oh
need to
my
go again.
gosh.
But yeah, no, I'm super frustrated because I was trying and trying and trying to get on the internet, and then it's just told me the internet's working, but maybe you have to open a browser to connect. I'm like, I've been doing that. So I finally just came
Hotel
into my
internet.
room.
Ugh.
Huh?
But
I'm in a
hotel
hotel,
internet.
yes. Yes, I'm in a hotel. And so then I finally just came over here and sat where I slept, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this works. But yeah,
Okay.
it wouldn't work over there at the desk. I'm in like the the edge, like a corner looking kind of
Yeah.
room. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but yeah.
Well, glad you made it.
I'm trying to get in about a good 20 minutes now.
All right. Let's do this. I'm gonna just say that we're gonna take a quick break for the podcast. And when we come back, we're gonna answer a question about masking and authenticity. So we will be right back. All right. So let's see, announcements. We're going to be leading starting next week uh, on Wednesday for in our adult study hall community. We haven't done this before. This has only been for alumni for our coaching program before. We're going to be leading 5 weeks of yearly planning sessions. So it's a continual thing. All you have to do is be a member of adult study hall, and you can participate with that. So just go to adultstudyhall.com to sign up for that. Okay. I think that's all the announcements for right now because I don't have dates yet for our coaching groups because I'm just kind of slow on my roll here a little bit as I'm coming out of burnout, and going slow feels good. All right, let's come back with that next question. And we are back. All right, Stacy asks, how can we figure out what is masking and what is actually the authentic self? Such a good question. I think when we lean in to our authentic self, there's a certain energy that we feel around that. Um, it's interesting because I think one of the things that I have found, because this is absolutely something I've been exploring myself as I've been exploring an autism diagnosis for myself, is sort of realizing that I didn't even realize that I was also masking, right? Like, and um, I've been reading a couple books recently that really are looking at ADHD and autism and sort of just neurodivergence through the social lens of disability versus the medical model. And it's really helping me see like that how all of these like sort of skills that we do work on, and I think are important to work on, but also that like it's this idea of this ableism that is so pervasive that we think it's all on us to adopt kind of this neurotypical life. And I don't know about all of you, but after a while, I kind of get real burnt out from trying to feel like I have to sort of keep up with this neurotypical life, right? And I've done so many things in my life that to make it more ADHD friendly. And as I've been exploring Autism, I've realized that there's actually more that masking that I've been unmasking around. Because I've just been kind of allowing myself to be a little bit less, I think, inhibited in my nervous system, if that makes sense. Um, and I think it's a feeling. I think it's one of those things that you might not know until you actually take the mask off. And then it's like, oh, right? Similar to I mean maybe how like some people feel when they first take ADHD meds. Like they didn't realize what, you know, I don't even say normal, but what quote unquote normal can feel like. I was like, oh, you mean like my brain doesn't need to feel like it's in a fog all the time or having, 50 thoughts all at once. Is this how, quote unquote normal or neurotypical people experience things? And so it's challenging because it's like we don't know unless we see the difference. Um, but I think too that when we see other people doing things maybe in a way that we kind of relate to, try it out yourself, right? There was I'll need to pull it up on my Audible account because I can never remember what books I'm listening to. I just yeah, I read this really good book and it's I just don't remember the name. Um, how they were talking about, let's see, what is it? Re-regulated, I think it was either that one or unmasking autism. Maybe it was that one. Um, I think it was Unmasking Autism, where the author was talking about, and they're a proponent of this more the social model of disability, encouraging people to basically let their neurodivergence sort of hang out, like in the classroom, if and they're a professor. If they need to, someone need to walk around and they can't like do it. Like you need to flap your hands, do it. And one of the things that this author sort of talked about was how many neurotypical people actually just kind of leaned into this idea and found it really regulating and enjoyed doing that. It's interesting because I had recently personally realized that I think I actually used to be kind of a hand flapper and I kind of suppressed it like from like my early childhood through and I just remembered that while I was actually at a Fish concert this summer. And so I have been like actually enjoying doing that. I find it kind of regulating. Um and I'm not making like I don't know. I'm it's weird because I'm a very driven person and yet I'm also I don't want to say lowering my standards, but like I don't know, Krista, what am I trying to say here?
Well, you've given me plenty of time to formulate a concise way
Hold
for
your
me
mic
to
up.
say it.
Hold the mic thing up. Yep.
You've given me plenty of time to formulate how I want to say it concisely. So, what I heard in that question, I'm adding to it with the idea of we all have roles in life too. We all put hats on.
Hmm.
That's not masking. That's putting the hat on. Like if I have to walk into a dance studio and be the teacher,
Hmm.
I'm the leader. Then I'm the educator. I'm the helper. That is putting a mask, quote unquote mask on. However, what the masking the question the member is talking about is the idea of I was trying to think of what the difference is for me. It is when I'm trying to control myself. That is masking. When I say, "Oh, time for me to go," oh, I got to put on mean mom. I'm mean mom right now. I'm not doing that with effort. I'm doing that authentically. It's a part of who I am. If I
Hmm.
am going and I'm being a therapist in the room, I'm not saying I'm not doing it with effort, but I'm not trying to control what I say. I'm authentically being the therapist role in that moment. And you are, I believe, correct. 'Cause I'm older than you, and so I've got a lot more reflection. It's times when I get really excited. I have learned to embrace it since going through this program. And I remember a specific time in the flea market, and my daughter was trying to sign up for a booth too. And I started going, oh, and I was like really excited and loud. And she was like, Mom. And I went, what? She goes, she was like, and I went, oh. And then I felt myself controlling to be like
Hmm.
the norm in the room, Um, and I was really reflecting on this question because, I'm an actress too. So it's that idea of putting, and so I think there's something about intention behind it. If I'm intentionally feeling like I'm controlling my behaviors and watching what are my behaviors, that feels like masking. If I walk into a room and, like right here, I'm on as a panelist to answer questions, I feel like I'm playing a role, but a part of who I am. So that's authentic. It's a different
Mm.
kind of effort. It's not me trying to control what I'm doing. It's trying to, how do I say what I want to convey and answer?
Kristen, what about the difference between masking and filtering?
That's different. That's a skill you're using in your role. And I just whipped that out and said that real quick. So I hope that makes sense, in how I said it. I think as therapists, we learn so many different models that we're taught the difference between strategies. Well, let me say this: you have strategies, you have techniques, and then you have skills under those. So, and that kind of goes down in gradation: the strategy to a technique, and then the skill within the
Hmm.
technique. Um, and so, to me, filtering is a skill I am using within whatever role I'm playing. And I don't mean to say that like playing, because it's still an authentic side of me. Even in acting, there's an authenticity of me in the role I might play on a
Hmm.
stage that I'm bringing to the character. So it's a really interesting question when I think about it like that. But I too, I think your book was probably unmasking autism, because I've heard that's a really good book, at least recently.
Yeah.
And I too have begun noticing. So I think too, the more you start identifying your own behaviors and that sort of thing, the more you start trying to control them. And I think that's when you are masking, because maybe you didn't control them for, maybe you controlled them, but you looked at them as somebody used to try to control me. And it's just you're kind of lost in limbo until you identify. You can't make change until you identify the quote unquote problem.
Right. You need
So
awareness
you
before you
can't
can.
know you're masking. I mean, if you don't know it's a problem.
Right. Right. Absolutely. All right. Let's see what our next question is. I had read Stacy's question, but I needed clarification, and then she just provided it. So let me start that question over. All right. So Stacy had asked about tips for maintaining awareness to better keep track of items, um, like workarounds, trackers, lanyards. Let's see. And they were curious about things that are not daily items. Um, then they followed up with that needing to allow more transition and time. Are you there yet, Stacey? Sorry, I'm like trying to do this in real time. Like, wait, I still have questions. And Kristen, do you see the questions? Do I need to make you co-host here? I mean,
I now see, I think, see whatever starts with sentimental things are important to us. And then I see
um,
a couple more after that.
yeah, Stacy's question in the Q&A.
This is Stacy's question.
Okay.
And she has a wonky connection. I don't think she can
Yeah,
connect.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I
Okay.
don't see that question.
Well, let me,
No, 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 no. Eric, y'all,
yeah.
my ADHD showing. I'm reading the chat. Sorry. I only have one question in the Q&A. Says yes, losing track of items. I'm guessing I need to allow more transition and prep. That's all I see.
Okay. So let me just, I'll speak to sort of in general, the how do we not lose everything? Um, so, you had said you have trackers on stuff, and absolutely, I think that, if anyone from like Tile or Apple AirTag is listening, you can sponsor me because I support your products. Because I think they're so helpful. Like I literally don't know how I did life without trackers on so many of my things. I got one of the Tile Slim for my wallet. I got, Tiles on all my keys. I throw them in my bags because you never know. You bring your bag with you somewhere, you walk away, and it's, oh, I'll get a text message. You were this far away from your, device. So yeah, trackers are definitely great. Um, Trying to, have, I mean, we've all heard this idea of, everything needs a home, right? Which is, yeah, it makes sense in theory. In practice, I think it can be hard. Um, things like having a little key hook on your door by your front door. That, in theory is really helpful. Now, let's say you want to do that. You like really are determined to put your keys, up on the hook when you walk in the door every time. But you also notice, despite this intention, that ain't happening, right? Um, so a couple things you can do. One, add an actual extra like cue, even if that's like a sticky note on your door that reminds you to do that right where that actually needs to take place. The other thing you can do, so let's say you walk into your place, you realize your keys are in your pocket. You can do is sometimes referred to as an overcorrection technique, where you literally leave the home and come back in to do it correctly the way you actually want to do it, right? Um, and it's surprising how helpful that can be, and I've used that for in a lot of different areas. And every time I do it, I'm like, this feels really silly, and it pretty reliably works well for me. Um,
You must be a kinesthetic learner.
oh yeah, I absolutely am.
I am too, and I'm a kinesthetic cuer. And it's like being in a show. You're rehearsing. You're rehearsing. I was trying to say choreographing and rehearsing at the same time. And it's basically like scripting too. When we have trouble, and I know a lot of you out there understand scripting, planning your phone call, things you can say if they say about something, in return. That is the same thing, but with your body. You're blocking the move.
Yes. So, in my what I have, I'll just talk about my keys because I think it's probably something most of us can relate to. Um, so I have the keychain hook in the mudroom when I come into the house. Um, but I also have a bowl that is on the kitchen counter. So if it didn't make it to the hook, it goes on the counter. If it doesn't make it into the bowl on the counter, I also have a catch-all, like a little catch-all tray in my bedroom, right? So I have sort of like the backup places where it goes because it's like, look, there's times where like, I realize I had my keys in my pocket, I didn't hang them up on the hook, and I am not going back downstairs, right? So what the next best place? So I only have a limited number of places to sort of put certain things. Um, and I think that's, maybe that's one of the solutions is don't just have one place that you put everything or put a particular item. Maybe have three places for it. So at least it minimizes all the different places because you want to make it easier, right? If you think about, especially with inattentive ADHD, we want to try to like decrease the steps to as close to zero as possible, right? The more steps, the less likely we're going to actually execute on something. So if you have a place for a particular item that you tend to misplace in multiple places, it then limits the number of spots it will go to. So instead of going, oh, I'll bring it downstairs later, you just have a spot for it. So when you go downstairs and your keys aren't there, like, okay, I know where to go check now.
And yeah, I think I caught what you were saying. I thought I had an emergency on my phone. I apologize, but it took me because I forever would just misplace my keys, and I tried to do the thing of, well, just leave it in your purse. Well, then I misplaced my purse, and so that wasn't helpful. So if I found there'd been a hook on the garage door into the kitchen the whole time we've been living there, okay, and I didn't do this until 4 years ago, maybe five. Okay. So I said, oh, I'll just put my keys up there and tell everybody they can't use the hook now. So I put my keys up there. Every time that I came in that house and I'd be back downstairs or something like that, and I'd remember, oh, wait, I forgot I would get up immediately and go put them back because it's that repetition of action of seeing me put it on the hook, reaching up with my arm. It's really important to make that correction while you're learning because it's such I mean, the thing you're unlearning is what's incredibly hard. I think that's harder than learning a new
Oh
thing.
yeah, unlearning is absolutely harder than learning
You have to
something for
do
the
that
first
at the
time.
same time.
Yep, yep.
So
I just saw a, comment that Lisa said in the chat. So I'm still searching for a set of keys for my salon. Lost them 8 years ago. Now I have a tracker on my only spare key. So I wanted to comment on that one. So, okay, having redundancies in the things that we need, do it. Because here's the thing, it costs a couple bucks to get a copy of the key made. It costs several $100s if you need to have a locksmith come out and make a new key from the actual lock itself, right? Um, which reminds me, I've misplaced one of my motorcycle keys and I haven't been able to find it, which means I only have one key right now. I'm gonna add that to my to-do list. Okay.
And it's a cost a couple $100 to replace key fobs, though. So learn the new routine, find a home for it, because those are hard to get in redundancy. You got to have a little bit of, extra money privilege and that sort of thing.
Speaking of key fobs, so now my car, which is like the thing I love about it with the key fob, I literally cannot lock myself out. It won't let me. Right. So if I left my keys in the like it go beep 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 beep, I can't tell you how many times I hear that high pitched beeping sound. It's like, thank you, car. Except if the batteries are super low on the key fob and it doesn't recognize that it's actually in the car, which has happened to me.
Or if it's tucked down so much inside a bag underneath so many things, because I've done it twice now and had to call for the key code.
Oh no. Well,
so
it's so
that, and you're right about the low batteries too.
So something that I now do is I keep those extra the batteries for the key fob in my dash because I did not know this until about a year ago. Do you know almost all of those key fobs actually have a key, an actual physical key in the fob? Did not know that until I had to replace my and I looked it up online. I was like, how do I, my finger, how do I replace the battery? And so I was able to open the door. I don't know why the cars don't have both options to have the electric, the push start and the key start, because my car does not. But because I was stranded one time and because I didn't have my thing was dead and I couldn't get it going. So I now keep the couple batteries in the car. So yeah, oh man. I mean, it's almost like a bad ADHD joke, like losing our keys, but it's like it legit is a thing that happens all the time, right? Because think about what happens. Like we have our hands filled because we try to maximize the efficiency of our trip. So we have like a gazillion things in our hands, and we have our keys in our hand. Someone just set this down for just a second so I can take care of this other stuff. And that's where it all goes wrong, right? Because they don't remember putting it down for just a second with every intention of picking it back up as soon as we put this other stuff away, right?
Yeah, to this nightmare. So then you have the numbers where you can punch in the code.
Yeah.
If you don't use it all the time, I have to call my husband to ask what it is because I can't remember it.
Do you have a password manager?
Um, yes, and it was the one from the previous car.
It's gotta keep that updated.
It's not working. And I didn't
I
realize.
wonder if there's a way to reprogram it so the code is the same from the previous car.
I thought he did. I thought so see that whole memory thing. I mean, like this was the conversation. It was like, but no, I'm using this. And he goes, no, that was the old car. And I go, but I thought you transferred it over. No, I said we couldn't for some reason. I was like, yeah, had to go through all that before he'd give me the number.
Oh man. All right, I think we have time.
All ADHD stuff.
Yeah. I mean, all of this. It's that expression that if we weren't laughing, we'd be crying. It's let's just laugh and learn, right? Like laugh and learn, right? And try something different. Don't give up and don't beat yourself up. Like, because those two options have never really helped anybody. Right. All right. Um, we have time for one more question if anyone has another question. Kristen, I have a question for you. Curious about your opinion on something. Like, oh crap, being put on the spot. So I've been reading some books that are talking more about the social model of disability. And in this, there's a lot of advocacy for really not like don't put so much stock in needing to get the official diagnosis, and sort of honoring what they're calling your discovery of autism, versus the diagnosis of autism. I have mixed thoughts about it. What are your thoughts about it?
Um, there's a lot of branches on that tree, first of all.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I see a diagnosis as the paper trail and the way to get things paid. As a therapist, I don't give a shit what you come in and tell me somebody else has diagnosed you with. And to be quite fair, y'all, unless it's like considered total like a disability thing and federal government and all of that stuff, every therapist you go to re-diagnoses you. And my daughter had probably 7 diagnoses before she hit 6th grade
Hmm.
because they would pick and choose what the diagnosis was based on what they were presented with in that moment. This is especially true of children, but it's because there's so much overlapping symptomology that, and funders want the diagnosis the time you meet them. To me, that's like a snapshot. It's like a Polaroid of that moment. How the hell are we supposed to give a really accurate assessment of that? So I, first of all, always say clinical impression. Now, to get back to that, so it's all about, funding, doing things, dotting I's, crossing T's, all of that. It also, I think for yourself, can help guide you in self growth. I still say for therapist or your clinician working with you, they need to be following you and whatever is impacting what's going on for you in that moment. It still can guide you, because if I'm going to say that I can't stop crying, can't get out of bed, and that's the problem, still could use a little more guidance if we're going to get to the core of the problem. So, yeah, it could be bipolar 2 depression, but it could also be an acute depressive episode. It could also be, oh shit, your mom died yesterday and you didn't tell me that.
Or
Oh,
heartbreak, or
okay, it's
yeah.
grief and because we don't always have all the information. So there is that element to it too. Um, I I am not sure I check all the boxes. I have a daughter with severe autism. Anybody out there that doesn't know that from maybe being a new listener, and like Eric, I've been sort of listening to myself and noticing what I do and stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? That's not ADHD. There were some things that I was like, wow, they do this too.
Yeah.
ADHD. It is ADHD. And then as I got better at identifying that, then I'd have something else. I'd be like, wait a minute, why isn't anybody talking about this thing? Oh, this might be, ew. So there are things that I could check off and definitely say it's an autism trait. It is in the family. I have a daughter with severe nonverbal, has to be full care 24 hours a day. So obviously there are traits there. Again, I don't really give a shit about the trait, um, in the sense of just because I have it. It's, oh, how can I lean into this and it be a strength for me? Or how's it getting in my way now? Even all this ADHD didn't really, it did internally, but didn't get in my way in the social setting until I became a therapist, because I was in the arts. And it's like,
Yeah.
sort of handed to you on a silver platter, at least in my role that I was playing. It did explain a lot, and that was helpful. I didn't think my brain was broken. I couldn't read books anymore when I hit high school, you know, because I still did well, and the goal there was to do well in school. So okay, and I just kind of stopped reading. But that,
Mm.
that's if I just did something instead to make me happy. I like now that I know what the deal is, and that I can create my own growth and intervention, so I can do that thing that I like to do, which is read. Kind of see where I'm going. It, I don't need a diagnosis to tell me, oh,
Mhm.
this tool, this modification, this intervention can help me to do the things I want to do. A diagnosis can give me relief. Well, so I'm just checking off the boxes and going, that really is kind of autism. Okay, I get that. Oh, okay. If I went to go get a formal diagnosis, why? Why do I need that? What am I going to do with it? If I get old enough, but not old enough to retire, and something gets in my way worse, and that could lead me towards some sort of benefit that could be helpful to me, whether it be a federal benefit or at work benefits or something like that, then yeah, I might go do that. I am troubled by self diagnosing and advertising it to the world.
I think that's where my struggle is, because I
Okay.
want to talk about, my experience as what I think is, likely that I'm an ADHDer. But I feel like, and like I'm doing so much exploration around this, and including with my therapist. And it's all the signs are pointing to highly likely.
So here's the question for you.
Yeah,
Let's put it in a question way. How will an official diagnosis benefit you?
I think one of the things is that as you know, I've been really coming out of this pretty deep state of burnout. And I think recognizing that the way that I was sort of driven and sort of growing the business was not really healthy for my brain.
Okay.
And I think that saying, you know what, like, holy crap, have I, I've been I've been autistic this whole time, and like this is why I've been experiencing this burnout, why I've been struggling, and why I've had these various struggles. Specifically just around some of the things with friends and in the community, and like and just sort of realizing that it kind of allows me to say, hey, I've learned about myself, this. And so if you see this, like, can you let me know, or can you give me that feedback? Because it's not intentional, something like that.
And you can say all those things without saying, I have autism.
That's true. That's true.
So in the question there would be, how would adding that layer to everyone be helpful in your conversations you're wanting to have about your growth? Yeah, I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to share the caveat with you. If you've met one person with
Yeah.
autism, what, Eric?
You've met one person with
So
autism.
why the hell should we even? I mean, I don't mean to say should. How is it going to possibly negatively impact us by going, hey, yeah, I've discovered I have autism, yada 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 yada. The minute you say I have autism, whatever they've seen of autism is what they think they know about you.
That's true. It's the same thing for ADHD too.
And that's why I think
That's true.
that's why I think it's important to do the embracing and discovery of yourself. But I think that's important for any person out there. Even think about it. Think about a person who we can see, and as clinicians, we've known them long enough that we look at them and we go, man, if they did an evaluation, they might check all those boxes. Okay, so you're picturing someone like that, and they don't see themselves that way yet. None of those things are impacting them negatively.
Mm.
So they don't have to. Maybe they are embracing all those behaviors they have, but they don't need a name for it because the name doesn't do anything. The name is not the thing that provides us the vehicle over that bridge. The name is the thing that says you have a disability, that helps people provide you more modification, or make them required to provide you. Like it
I
also.
guess, one of the issues too for me is, as in a sense, as a content creator, that, having representation, where I think one of the reasons why we love group and community is that we get to see ourselves in others.
So here's the
Um,
problem, Eric.
okay.
You haven't even met Kylie, my daughter.
Yeah.
Have you seen a video of her? Have I shown you videos?
I don't remember.
Okay. Nowadays, it's autism spectrum disorder.
Right. And I've worked
There,
with
well, yes,
people
you
with
know what I'm
autism with
talking
high
about, because
needs.
there is no
Yes.
way in hell we are representing that cohort
Right.
on
Right.
the spectrum. And my fear is that the then the general population, when I say my daughter has autism, they go, oh, and they think they know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
Then I have to go through all this of why she is considered disabled, why she is. And so
Yeah.
I think that and it goes, and I mean, it goes both ways. If um, it puts a bad taste in some people's mouth that do have people with very severe autism, for someone to walk up and go,
Yeah.
hey, I have autism. How are you today? And they're going, you don't even know to struggle, because it's a
Right.
totally different
It
struggle.
is. It is. Yeah. And
And
I think that,
this diagnosis in particular particular, I was speaking in general about the whole thing, but I think this diagnosis in particular,
Hmm.
I believe we should all embrace who we are and learn about more who we are. And if it can be helpful to you to have the formal diagnosis, great. I also think it's giving misleading pictures of what that is. I think some of our stuff we should spread is you met one odd person with autism, you
Yeah.
met one, teaching them more about what spectrum means.
Yeah.
Because people, we bastardize language all the time. I don't know how many times I would hear when I worked at the Women and Children First shelter. Um, yeah, he was bipolar. I'm like, oh, was he diagnosed? No, he's just bipolar. And I'm like going, wait a minute. That's not what that even means. People take the language and they make it a
Yeah.
general vocabulary, and it's not. And I worry that autism has become that way too. It's got its own
I can
language.
see that your point in that. I think that, when they sort of removed Asperger's from the DSM.
I don't think they just removed Asperger's, did they? Didn't they remove the other ones? Rett syndrome,
Yeah.
Angelman, at Fragile X. I mean, nobody even knows that. Everybody just thinks it was Asperger's and autism. No, there were about 10 different autism diagnoses with their own names.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that especially a lot of the ADHDers, is would have been diagnosed with Asperger's. But in addition to like the why they removed it, because when it used to be separating social and communication and realizing that communication is social, so it actually is, it's kind of a moot point. You can't really separate those. And yes, Asperger was apparently known to be a Nazi. So it's like, I wouldn't want to have something named after,
Ick, ew,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Well,
So it's
you
like,
know my theory, because I've told you this a long time ago. If we take the ADHD people, I think they are their own diagnosis. I think um, no, like difficulty masking at all ADHD, kind of classic looking. I think that's its own diagnosis. And I think
yeah,
low functioning autism, by low functioning, I mean they function differently. But they do have, my daughter has definite impairment. She is not functioning on her age 32 level
yeah,
communicatively at all. So,
yeah.
yeah, I'm saying that the right way. And I think they are their own diagnosis. Um, and
It is
that's
funny
why
though how
these
language has
diagnoses are
evolved,
helpful to help with
right?
that picture. What? I'm sorry.
So it is funny how much language has evolved, because when you and I actually when we were in school, like we were taught person first language, right? And now it's like the social model of disability is kind of like screw that, right? Like I'm an ADHD or I'm autistic, right? Versus I'm a person with, and it's like, I think it's still like identify with what feels right for you.
I also think it's about intention. Having been a mom that was not a therapist and having all those meetings and hearing how that language would change and drift, and sometimes it became an argument about how you're saying it. And I'm like, we're here for my daughter. Her name is Kylie, and
Mhm.
here's what she needs. Here's what we're working on. I don't want to spend time dealing with that.
Yeah,
I mean, I was the mom saying, yeah, my autistic daughter. I didn't mean anything bad about it.
yeah,
How could I have known I had any bad intention about it? It's just crazy.
yeah,
But I get it too. I think people who are smart and crafty just change up the language. That's why we keep having to change what's politically correct for us.
yeah.
It just
Um, all right, so we're at the end of our time here. So I just noticed, I often talk about if it's easy to have a plan B or a plan C, always do it. You've heard me say this before.
yeah.
So I don't know if you know my process for when I record anything for the podcast. I record on Adobe Audition, I record on my
Yeah.
mixer, I record on Zoom. And it's a damn good thing that I have those backups because somehow at 5 minutes in, I noticed the audio on Adobe Audition stopped recording.
Oh no.
But I have recording on my
Yeah.
mixer and it's being recorded on Zoom.
Yep.
So
I'm seeing the Zoom one.
so that's great. So with that, yeah, we haven't released an actual Q&A on the podcast in quite some time, but that I'm getting ready. I have two people who I'm actually talking to who I'm looking to hire to edit the podcast. So hopefully going to
That's
be
good
getting
because
this.
this is one of of the most popular series you've got is the Q&A ones. Definitely. And
Oh,
reminder to everybody, I'm here in California already because it's the Chad conference, Chad ADA conference.
awesome. Awesome.
Yay. Maybe you'll do a few of your little interviews again.
Maybe I'm packing all the stuff and yeah. So as we will we'll be back here next month. So bring your questions. And thanks.